Although Book 4 of Infinity Train was an undeniably amazing season, it's safe to say that every single fan, and the entire crew who worked on the show, wishes that the series wasn't ending prematurely. Especially because the script for Book 5 is already written, as revealed by showrunner Owen Dennis in his 2-session finale AMA. In fact, a large portion of the AMA was Owen letting us know that several of our burning questions would have been answered in the 5th installment. Thanks so much, Owen, for answering my question, by the way. We also learned that not only was Book 5 written, but that it was supposed to be a movie, and there was preliminary work being done on Book 6 and 7 and a Christmas special. Today, we're going to examine all the hints in the AMA to uncover what we would have seen if the show wasn't discontinued, talk about how Book 4 tied into Book 5, and discuss what it's going to take to bring the show back. I'm Whitney Van Laningham, and this is the story of the Infinity Train that almost was. Before we board the breakdown train, this is your spoiler warning! If you haven't seen Book 4 of Infinity Train yet, we are going to discuss a few things that went down on the train with Ryan and Mingy in relation to Book 5. We're also going to be speculating on Books 5 through 8, so if you're waiting for those to come out before you have anything spoiled for you, you're going to be waiting a very long time. So you might as well just dive in with us, right? Let's go! After the whirlwind of death, body horror, and extreme emotions we experienced through the characters in Books 1 through 3, Book 4 had relatively little trauma compared to the previous seasons. Owen says he actually considers this season a comedy, and mentioned that he and the writers wanted to lighten the tone a little after Books 2 and 3. Sure, it's no tuba wheeling, but that hand monster and Jeremy's tragic backstory have me questioning Owen's definition of comedy. I know he's talking more about the total package with Mama Kez and Chicken Choice Judy, but still, this is gonna live in my nightmares forever. According to the AMA, each book is written as a reaction to the previous one, so after all the wildly emotional things in the previous seasons, it was the natural time for a little levity. This makes me believe that Book 4 was a palate cleanser, using a happier story to lower our guard for an emotionally grueling Book 5. Despite the lighter air of Ryan and Mingy's story on the train, Owen also confirmed that there were some pretty dark things happening on the train simultaneously. It was clear from this season that the boys arrived on the train at a critical point of change. Namely, when Amelia was rising to power as the conductor, and altering significant things about the way the train functions. Owen confirmed that Book 4 was set during Amelia's initial rise to power, sometime in the 1980s. And based on his other answers to questions about Amelia, Book 5 was going to focus on this period of the train's history. If Book 4 was a comedy and Book 5 is a reaction to that, it only makes sense that the next installment would have centered around the intense experience of her hijacking the train. He also dropped that the theme of Book 5 would have been grief, which makes sense, as most of Amelia's issues stemmed from the loss of her life with Ulrich and her attempts to bring him back. Knowing that Book 5 runs parallel with Book 4 gives us a lot to reverse engineer. When we first see Amelia in Book 4, she's with One in the passenger preparation car. Make note that this is One and not 1-1, the split persona we've grown to love in previous seasons. Confused by why Ryan and Mingy are simultaneously on the train together with the same numbers, One explains to her that mathematically, over an infinite amount of probable scenarios, it's possible for anything to happen on the train, including this. But Amelia clearly doesn't care too deeply about why the two boys are here at the same time. As soon as she hears that anything is possible on the train, you can see the wheels in her mind hole start clicking as she immediately starts trying to figure out a way to recreate her lost love, Ulrich. When asked why Amelia was even with One in the passenger farm car and what she did to them to secure her place as the conductor, Owen responded, "These are questions that would have been answered in Season 5. I have so many theories about why Amelia could have been working with One. Perhaps they admired her human curiosity and offered to let her shadow them. Maybe One was studying her closely to empathize with the passengers' journeys better. Or maybe she was working for them as some sort of executive choo-choo assistant, and One was hoping to delegate some of the train's responsibilities to her. Whatever it was, Amelia had to have gained One's trust in order to get close enough to be in a position to usurp them. My guess is that once she learned that anything was possible on the Infinity Train, she began planning to ask One to create her a car with Ulrich inside. I believe she started off by convincing One to make small changes to the train that would make the train, quote-unquote, better for passengers. One of those changes was to give back their personal items, as seen at the beginning of Episode 6 this season. The steward interrupts the party car with a train-wide announcement and throws down a case of Ryan and Min's things. You can hear her quietly say to One, "See, that's a good thing. Now we can individuate them." But before she can finish her sentence, it seems that something cuts her off. Perhaps that something was One protesting in response to her actions, or maybe something going on in another car distracted her from completing that thought. Her use of the word individuate suggests that maybe One has difficulties distinguishing passengers from one another. When a fan asked Owen if she brought the boys their things back out of the goodness of her heart or because of an ulterior motive, Owen replied that she brought back everyone's things, not just Ryan and Min's. I believe that means that in this scene, we're witnessing her first baby steps into changing the rules of the train. I also think it's worth noting that Glad One enters One's speech pattern when he says during this scene. Could this mean that Amelia was slowly reprogramming One and created his two personalities by accident? Or is this simply a byproduct of One reprogramming himself in an attempt to learn from Amelia? We do know through the AMA that the creation of Glad One and Sad One would have been seen during the events of Book 5. Later on, the steward busts into Morgan the castle, this time destroying part of it to reach the boys. Her haphazard arrival alone shows that she's gone even deeper down the rabbit hole of becoming the conductor at this point, and is becoming more careless about the train as she single-mindedly focuses on how to start making an Ulrich car. This time, she announces that they're all on their own now, before correcting herself to say that we're on our own now, and disconnects Ryan and Min's train boots. Like with returning the other passengers' things, Owen said she also removed all the other passengers' boots at the same time. Similar to the answer he gave about the steward returning the boys' belongings, Owen confirmed in the AMA that these boots are standard issue for everyone who boards the train BA before Amelia. And same goes for the uniforms they both wake up in. The matching jumpsuits are given to all the passengers in order to start them off with complete neutrality. Unlike the jumpsuits, however, I think the boots serve a deeper purpose than simply homogenizing everyone. It can't be a coincidence that their numbers reset as soon as the boots were removed, nor that Kez unfroze the second the boots were disabled. Also, in episode 5, Kez implies that the boots lock on purpose when she's cut off, saying, "They're not supposed to do that until." So there are a few things all these clues could suggest. The first is that these boots might be a safety feature designed by One. Perhaps they freeze to prevent passengers from falling off the train, entering dangerous, incomplete cars, or to stop unauthorized access to maintenance facilities. The AMA did hint that the train's engine room could be larger than it appears, which might support this theory. The boots might even be a form of tracking device like Simon's radar system that One uses to analyze data on which cars teach which people which life lessons in order to monitor which routes are most effective for growth. Or they could be what gives passengers immunity to the train's time stops, and perhaps Amelia needs to remove them so that she can mess with the train's source code without endangering passengers. Alternatively, what if something caused Amelia to believe that the boots are a danger to the passengers? One thing's for sure, we'd probably find out their exact purpose in Book 5. I think it's fair to say that by the second appearance of the steward in Book 4, Amelia has already exiled One and taken over the train. Her lack of understanding of the steward's controls could also explain why it exploded after jumping out the window. Owen did confirm that there were multiple stewards on the train. Emphasis on the word were. Perhaps One had an army of stewards to look after the cars, but Amelia wrecked all of them by accident, or even in this exact moment by pressing a self-destruct button while giving her train-wide announcement. The question on all our minds is, how does she ultimately turn One into One? When a fan in the AMA asked Owen how One became divided, he responded, Amelia. But how exactly does she split him into two parts like that? Well, a leaked still from the crew's private Infinity Train yearbook might hold the answer. On this page, you can see an unreleased storyboard panel that depicts Amelia tearing One apart. In the AMA, it was confirmed that these were in fact storyboards for Book 5. And upon closer inspection, it looks like they might not be one continuous scene, but are a variety of important story beats. It's hard to make out all the individual panels, but it looks like Amelia would be traveling with a turtle companion at one point, witness a Gome husking another passenger, see one of the veggie denizens get Thanos'd, and would at one point take to the shadows to hide from One and his stewards. There's also a board of what looks like Amelia and Ulrich laying in bed, only for Amelia to awaken alone on the train. This scene shows Amelia aiming the steward's mask, seemingly ready to fire its glowing, flaming eyes. Behind her, there seems to be a turtle in danger with the shadow of the steward's claw closing in. In the last two panels, it looks like One is trying to crawl away from Amelia when she grabs him and rips him in half, splitting him into One. This scene must have happened during their final argument about creating that Ulrich car for her. Amelia's creations were all very turtley to begin with, so my guess is that the turtle in the background is one of the first denizens she made. It could also be that Amelia is blasting a beam that'll rematerialize the turtle as Ulrich, and that the turtle is actually Aloysius, who Owen previously confirmed was an attempt to recreate Ulrich. That's also what makes me think that their battle royale possibly takes place in the unfinished car. Regardless of where or when the battle takes place, Owen dropped another huge bombshell about a potential plot point in Book 5 that could change everything about the way you see a certain character. When a fan asked him to tell us 3 ridiculous claims about Book 5, with one of them being true, Owen replied, Number 1, we see one murder somebody. Number 2, we see Amelia murder somebody. Number 3, we see the cat murder somebody. Okay, what? We're about to see another murder on the train? And this time, it's not going to be an a-hole like Simon. It's going to be a redeemable character that we already love. Why are you doing this to us, Owen? Realistically, it seems like Amelia would be the obvious answer for who kills someone on the train during her rise to power. She's got her moral compass on backwards, and we know that she'll do whatever it takes to see Ulrich again. It might also be that Amelia is responsible for the accident that caused Ulrich's death back in the real world. But that sounds almost too obvious, you know? Like, wouldn't it be wild if one actually murders somebody? One is so innocent and sweet, I can't even picture it. But perhaps one was a little more cutthroat with the therapy train. As I said earlier, what if Amelia removed the passengers' boots because they were dangerous? We do hear her say to Tulip, I was only trying to keep one at bay, in Book 1, suggesting that he was out of control at one point. Could it be that Amelia witnessed one heartlessly freeze a person in place to be killed, and this was her motivation for removing him as conductor? All her Ulrich baggage was just simply her making use of the tools one left behind. Based on the leaked storyboards, it does look like one was vastly more threatening than the robot we know. To be real though, I can totally see the third option of the cat murdering someone as the truth too. Maybe Samantha's also secretly a hitman in addition to a favor trader. So what else was left on the cutting room floor? Lots of Gome answers, apparently. When asked about how Gomes reproduced, we were told, would have been in Book 5. When asked if Atticus was shot with something that turned him into a Gome, or if all dead denizens become Gome, we were told, would have been in Book 5. I'm starting to sense a pattern here. We were also given a few hints about what Books 6, 7, and 8 might have looked like if their team had the chance to write them. The themes of the subsequent seasons would have been guilt, revenge, and acceptance. Book 6 was supposed to focus on a new character we haven't met, and another season was going to revolve around Hazel and Amelia. Owen said he was definitely planning to give us a conclusion to Hazel and Amelia's story. He said, it's a very specific relationship, and we wanted to explore it much, much more. And in an interview with Inverse, he did say that the end of their story would be bittersweet. Owen said that he was planning to do a season where a character did get stuck on the train forever, so maybe it could be Amelia. First off, her number is already so high that it's unlikely to ever hit 0, so a lifetime on the train raising Hazel as her pseudo-daughter makes sense. Setting a book during Amelia's final years could be that bittersweet note he was speaking of. When a fan asked what would happen if a passenger with Alzheimer's got on the train and would they be stuck there, he said, we did have a season where I wanted to touch on Alzheimer's, the final season actually. It was going to be loosely inspired by an autobiography that my grandfather wrote while he was slowly succumbing to it. He also said in a later comment that he wanted to explore it a bit, both from the viewpoint of the person suffering from it and from those around them watching their loved ones lose themselves. Although it would be certainly terrifying to experience any kind of declining health with danger lurking in every train car, this would have been a beautiful series finale and a powerful end to Amelia and Hazel's relationship. Alternatively, what if Tulip was the one with Alzheimer's? In an interview with Inverse, Owen talked about floating a season with an older version of Tulip returning to the train. It would bring things full circle if Tulip was the main character of the final season, and if the final season dealt with Alzheimer's, I wonder if an elderly Tulip would have been the one with memory loss. Seeing her dementia and inability to remember details of her first trip could possibly affect 1-1 and lead to a character arc for the conductor. As for Grace, Owen gave an emphatic maybe to the possibility of her leaving the train. If we go back to the theory that Amelia would be suffering from Alzheimer's, I think both an adult Grace and Tulip could play a role in this story. Not only do Hazel, Grace, and Tulip all have varying experiences with Amelia, but bringing together all these characters could make for a fulfilling final season, as they each work towards acceptance in their own ways. I'd love to see Hazel and Grace reunite by the end and find a way off the train together. Another potential storyline I've personally been dying to see has been from the perspective of the loved ones of the people who go missing when they become passengers. And I know, it's like, shut up, Whitney, this isn't a true crime podcast, it's a cartoon YouTube channel. But I'm sorry, I'm a diehard SVU fan and I would kill to see Ice-T investigate the Infinity Train. During the AMA, Owen responded yes to a fan who asked if the government was aware of the train's existence. So that tells me that Law & Order Magic Choo Choo Unit is totally possible. Come on, it's like the perfect idea for the Book 7 revenge theme. The train steals someone Ice-T loves, and he has to figure out how to board the train to save them. Lastly, one of my favorite ideas for an Infinity Train season came in response to a fan who asked Owen to tell us about rejected storylines. Although he clarified that they don't have any rejected ideas, he did say that he was interested in writing about two characters who fall in love based on their memory tapes having never met each other. Aw, it's like the Infinity Train version of stalking a stranger's Instagram stories, but way cuter! Literally, any single one of these ideas for potential future seasons would have been amazing, but the reality is that we might never see this show continue. Owen seems adamant about not leaking the script and only answering our burning Season 5 questions in the medium the story was intended to be shared in. So if we want more Infinity Train to happen, we're gonna have to rally like the Snyder Cut fans. According to the network, Infinity Train Book 5 was passed over by Cartoon Network because it didn't have a child entry point. Likely because its plot was going to follow just Amelia and One. Without a child or teen character, or even run-of-the-mill children's lit themes, Cartoon Network didn't feel like Infinity Train would work for their demo. And if you've been paying attention to Cartoon Network's recent direction, their target demo is skewing younger and younger, according to executives and their programming decisions, that is. It's unclear why Cartoon Network Studios still has complete say in whether IT lives or dies when it's now considered a beloved HBO Max original. But the reasoning for these decisions always comes down to executives not believing in YA animation, or even dramatic adult animation. It seems that to them, cartoons are either Teen Titans Go for single-digit crowds, or Rick and Morty for stoner college students. So in order to get Infinity Train picked back up, we're gonna have to prove to Warner Media that Infinity Train has a large market. The first thing you can do is spread the gospel of the show to all your friends with HBO Max and get them to watch the full series there. Also, rewatch the show yourself when you can. Owen has made it clear in the past that HBO Max is looking at their view counts. Beyond that, fellow Infinity Train fans are working to get the tags #RenewInfinityTrain and #FinishInfinityTrain trending, so use them to keep those tags alive every so often. Awestruck Fox from the Roundtable also had the great suggestion the other day to meme the fuck out of this show, and if we can get the music to pop off on TikTok, we might have a chance at appealing to the HB overlords. If you don't already follow him on Twitter, give him a follow to see some of the memes he's already posted. This has to be an ongoing effort, so if you ever come across an Infinity Train post online, add to the conversation and show your interest for more. And lastly, I think it'll be important to support other dramatic adult and YA animation. From what we've seen from Warner Media the past decade is that they're somewhat reactive in their greenlighting decisions. When Disney was smashing box office records with Avengers films, they rushed to get the Justice League team up out ASAP, and skipped the same degree of world building that built up the Marvel franchise. So I think it's going to take some big successes from other studios to get them to realize that they're sitting on a golden goose. It's definitely not YA and hella edgy, but I have a feeling that Amazon Prime's Invincible is currently the show that's going to make executives realize that a Western animation market can go beyond children's fare or dysfunctional family sitcoms. Also, Owl House Season 2 will be more mature, so rallying behind that will prove a similar market to what Infinity Train has already tapped into. Essentially, we've got to show up not just for Infinity Train, but for dramatic animation as a whole, because clearly the IP holders of this series are focused on capitalizing safely on proven markets. But what do I know? I'm just the girl who ruined your childhood. Let me know in the comments what your theories are for Book 5, and be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. I'm Scarlet Wit, and you're watching Whitney Vision. Renew Infinity Train!